Where did Dom Hemingway come from? I mean, in your brain. Can you walk us through how he appeared?
I wanted to write a British crime set movie, and I started writing the very first scene, and it came out very easily. And I was just like, well, I want to see where this guy goes. And it was really fun to write because he sort of said everything that we always wish we could say, but we know we would get in trouble for saying.
No internal filter whatsoever.
None. I mean, shoots himself in the foot at every turn.
Well, how long did it take for you to come up with the script?
It didn't take that long. I mean, Dom is a rocket, and he sort of came out fast. We shot the movie fast, came out fast. I wanted to create a character that was difficult to like, but hopefully, like, you love him. And that was the process, and Jude was in on it and wanted to do the same thing, and we just sort of did this little movie. Shot it in 30 days.
Wow. Yeah. Where did Jude come in on the process after the script was done? Did you know him?
I did not know him. I was trying to find, I needed a British actor of a certain age.
Okay.
I wanted someone who'd never been in a gangster movie, which in Britain means that you lose 90% of the actors. And then I wanted someone who had done Shakespeare, because, well, certainly this is not Shakespeare, there's so many monologues and so much verbiage, if that's a word, that I wanted someone who knew how to do that, who could do that because he had done it on stage or whatever, and it was very theatrical. And I also thought Jude is someone who you would not expect to do this part. And that, I think, is key when you're doing an independent film, is to try and figure out ways to surprise people a little bit. And Jude has always played this sort of very pretty boy thing, and from the first moment I met him, I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to gain 20 pounds. I want to see a receding hairline. I wanted him to have a broken nose, but a really subtle broken nose. So Jude took the top of a baby bottle and cut it, and then made a little plastic donut and shoved it up his nose. And it just gave him a little bit of a weird thing. And then we had teeth on, yellow teeth, this huge discussions about how yellow Dom's teeth would be. And then we made this suit that was so tight. And the tailor almost had a heart attack. The tailor was like, I can't do this. It's against every tailoring law in London. I'm gonna go to tailor jail. But we're like, no, just tighter in the crotch, tighter. And then, so once Jude put on the boots and the suit and then slicked back his hair and had his nose and his teeth, and then the Lemmy chops was a big discussion. Because here's the thing, Jude was a little nervous, but not for Jude Law, but he just thought Dom Hemingway would think that Dom Hemingway was sexy.
Okay.
So he wanted to make sure that that facial hair was sexy for Dom. And eventually came around to it where he loved it, and of course, you know, it's so distinctive on him in this movie. He does not look like we are used to seeing him.
He's still, you know, he's still very, very easy on the eyes, though. I mean, I have a slight man crush.
Yes.
On Dom.
Well, my girlfriend said that he's never looked sexier, so that was a good sign. She clearly likes him a little. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, he's done so much. Was there a process that he went through to become Dom? You know, was he Dom all the time?
He was not Dom all the time, although he drank like Dom all the time, which was fun. We shot in the south of France, in London, and caused much trouble in both places. You know, he is one of those. The first time that he met Richard E. Grant, who plays Dickie, we went to dinner. And Jude, this was a month before we started shooting, and Jude was quoting lines from the script. And Richard E. Grant looked at him and he says, "You bastard, you're off book." And he knew the whole script. And we rehearsed the whole thing before we started shooting. The whole movie, every single scene, in the locations we shot at, with the actors, was all rehearsed in blocks. So that when we shot it in 30 days, we kind of knew what we were doing. and went in there and just sort of did it fast and furious.
Was there one time that a particular scene where Jude surprised you?
Well, he surprised me every day. I would look at the monitor sometimes and be so into it, and then no one would be talking, and I'd be like, oh, cut, I'm sorry. Like, I literally he took the words and made them his own, and he was dangerous and scary and lovable, and he was that character. And then, he's a very serious actor, and I was surrounded by really serious actors who took, Dom, there's a lot of laughs, I hope, in Dom, but Dom is a real flesh and blood character who's deeply flawed. And so that humanity, we would treat Dom as if he was a real person. Jude would come over and he's like, are we being too hard on Dom in this scene? I'm like, I don't know, Dom could handle a little bit more, and that's how we talked about it.
I want you guys to start thinking about maybe some questions here for Richard B. Where did you find Richard?
Why are you leaving? Where are you going?
I'm going to see if someone maybe has a question.
What a weird... We have somewhere else to go?
Well, no, we only have one microphone.
Oh, okay.
So I was thinking if anybody had any questions. This is the second largest theater in Arizona, so there's
You're going to get a workout.
No, wait.
Someone in the last row think of a question for him.
Here's a question here's a young man.
How's it going? Thank you so much for coming by. Enjoyed the film immensely.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, that opening scene, how many takes did it take for him to get that done?
Well, it's funny because Jude said, if I'm going to do the movie, we met in a pub in London. I flew out. I had no food in me at all, and we were in that pub for 5 hours. So by the time we were done, I could barely walk, and we were like, I love you. I'm going to do your movie. And then he's like, but if I'm going to do your movie, I have to shoot that first scene first. And we shot it 2 days before we started shooting for real. It was a prep day. We were doing camera tests. The crew had no idea what was going on. Jude walked onto the set naked, stood there, and we did 6 takes. I think that's take 5, and we were done in like an hour. Yeah.
What did Mom think of
my mom?
Yes, your mom at the screening.
My mom recommended Pulp Fiction to me, so my mom's pretty cool.
Someone's got a question here.
How you doing?
Hi.
Thank you so much for the movie. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Sort of a hard question to ask, but I felt like it was a totally relevant part of the writing and the entire film. How did you use Hemingway's penis as sort of like a symbol for his narcissism in life?
Well, as I said, I had a very easy time talking about the positivenesses of Dom's penis. And then later on it seemed like if Lester was going to challenge him at all, it would be to cut off the thing that he clearly loved the most. But Dom is this walking id. He is an idiot in so much of the movie, and he's thinking with his cock and not his brain, and he's making mistakes, and that's hopefully what's funny about him and why you care about him. But he has a long road to figure out his life, and so I was interested in that. And he's sort of also like, if you notice in the movie, it's set in current day, but you wouldn't necessarily, there's no cell phones. The girl in one scene has a cell phone, but there's literally no cell phone. Everyone's wearing these sort of retro clothing. The music's from the 80s, which is the music that Dom would have listened to, So Dom is a dinosaur. He says it himself. He's just like, shut up with that stuff. But hopefully you care about him.
Quick question. A writer always, writes what they knows. Is there any part of you that is Dom Hemingway? One major part, at least. Okay. I've got a question right here.
Sticking with the literary trend, you're clearly very well read. What do you like to read?
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, I'm assuming it was a very literary script.
Well, Dom, I loved writing his verbalness. The way he talked was just an enjoyable thing. I like to read. I read mostly nonfiction. But I'm a fan of theatricality in movies, and I'm a fan of characters who are verbose. They entertain me. And since my movies are short on the plot, as you notice, there's not like one last crime at the end of the movie. The sort of thing that is what hopefully keeps you entertained and interested is this guy's way of talking. Like his mouth has, Jude and I talked about the fact that he's survived on his ability to talk, and he's gotten into trouble in his ability to talk. And I don't know if it's a literary thing as much as just like, it was a gas to write it, and then when Jude did it, he just made it sound so much better. He's like a dream. As the director in me was in heaven with him.
It was a short shoot, you said, 30 days. So was there, what was like the most difficult scene that you had to film?
Well, that scene on the train, we were going to go from London to France, and we weren't going to shoot that day. And I was like, why don't we just take the train and shoot on the train? And we literally, everyone's like, you can't do that. I'm like, let's just buy out a car, and we'll go and we'll shoot on the train to France, and we'll save a day, and we'll add a day to the schedule. So that was like we got up at like 4:30 in the morning, and we were literally, Richard E. Grant and Jude are carrying lenses onto the train. And it was a small little cruise, like 10 people, and we shot that on a train on the way down to France. So that was like just technically difficult, but also incredibly fun, to have accomplished that so early on in the schedule. We felt pretty good.
I got a question right here.
Well, really enjoyed the movie, and
Thank you.
the dialogue especially. My favorite line was, "The rabbit is getting cold." Just wanted to ask what the inspiration or was behind his name, the title.
The Dom Hemingway?
Good question, yeah.
Well, I love Ernest Hemingway, so that was an easy last name. And Dom is first of all, I love the name Dom, but it's also, he's a dominant guy. I mean, so it just sort of, I came up with the title the same day that I wrote that first monologue, and I saw his name when I was writing, like it said Dom Hemingway, and I was like, oh, I can see this guy. This name makes sense to me. So that's where it came from.
We got a question right here.
I was just wondering what the origins were of the monkey room. If that was in the script, or if that just someone brought them in and you said yes.
Well, this incredible picture is a portrait of a real monkey. It's a photograph. And it's done by this woman named Jill Greenberg. And I wanted something for the walls of that room. And we were trying to figure out what to do. And one day our production designer, Lawrence Dorman, came in with this book of photographs, and he's like, this is it. And Jill, who I didn't know at the time, had never printed a photograph bigger than this, ever. And I was like, no, I want this to be gigantic. And she let us do it, and then she made us destroy them when we were done, which was sad, actually. But it's one of my favorite things in the movie. And it's, clearly those are three knucklehead monkeys in that room anyway, so it made sense.
Richard, I'm over here
hi.
right now. I've got a young lady over here. You have a question?
Yes. You know that saying that he had, first of all, I have no options, and then all of a sudden, a man who has options? I thought that was fantastic. Where
Thank
did you
you.
get that?
Just-
in your brain, I'm sure.
Just
but
my brain. I mean,
it was cool.
thank you.
I thought no, because I felt like that had the summation of the whole movie, to me.
Well, I also think, listen, I've had so many ups and downs in my own career. I've had very nice things happen, and I've had my phone turned off. So I feel like sometimes no options are incredibly creative and an opportunistic thing. And Dom is clearly someone who had a plan coming out of prison, and every single thing about that plan went south because of him. And so he has no option, so he better start trying to think of something. And I'd like to think that it's a movie about a guy taking one tiny step towards grace. Very tiny, like half a step. But for Dom, that's a huge step. And I believe that we're all capable of doing that.
Here I am.
Hi.
Good question right up here, this young man.
Hi, fantastic movie. I really liked it.
Thank you.
What about the British gangster genre attracted you to it, and what were some movies that inspired you in that same genre?
I don't know if you guys have seen this movie called Sexy Beast. Yeah. Well, the producer of that movie produced this movie, actually. And he also did a movie called The Hit, which is from 1980 and Tim Roth's first movie. I love both those movies. I love Mona Lisa. And I have this DNA of British gangster movies in my head. And the ones that I love tend to be the ones that are far more character-driven than plot-driven. So there's plenty of British gangster movies that like Guy Ritchie makes, and they're fine. But for me, it was all about, what if we just took one guy and saw him, flaws and all for the entire length of the movie? And that was the goal of it. But I love a good gangster movie in general. I mean, this is a gangster movie with, no guns and very little violence, even though it seems pretty violent.
And there is a sledgehammer, though.
There's a sledgehammer.
Yes.
And a chainsaw.
And a chainsaw.
And you, by the way, all of you, you can open a safe that way. This is true. So if things get tight in this economy, just know
you can hump a safe.
you can hump a safe. Just letting you know. And if there's a rash of safe robberies in Phoenix, I will know that it's my fault. And I would like my cut also.
I've got a question right here.
Hi, a wonderful movie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there any symbolism or a reason why you didn't have the grandson talk? Why there was no real dialogue with the grandson? It was just
There
moments?
wasn't a real reason. That kid was amazing. I mean, he was so soulful. I mean, the only way to audition an actor like that is to just talk with them and play with them. And I met a bunch of kids, and this kid was just literally like, he broke his heart with my eyes. And I felt like he didn't need to talk because he liked Dom. He was giving Dom like the benefit of a doubt, which to me was symbolic of many things. Although in the first take in the cemetery, after Jude had given this hugely emotional thing, the little boy was like, "Would you like to see my new video game?" And I'm like, what the fuck did that kid just say? But the second take he didn't say anything. But he was a lovely, oh my God, a lovely little, bright little kid. But there wasn't any symbolism as much as I didn't need him to talk, really.
Here we go, question right here.
Was there anything particularly funny or interesting that didn't make it into the final movie?
Well, this is the first movie that I've ever done in which every single scene that was written ended up in the movie. If not completely, but in some capacity. So, like there's a little moment when he opens the safe and the fireworks go off, and then you see him in a pub with the drinks on me. Like that was another scene. And the scene where he picks up the two hookers and fantasizes about what could happen was originally a full sequence, which was really difficult to shoot. And, but in general, this was basically the movie. This was the script. There was very little improvisation. It was, this was the vision. And I was very lucky to have a group of people led by Jude who got what I wanted to do, for better or worse. He just fully embraced it and was my partner through the whole process. He read and auditioned actors who were in the movie. He helped cast Emilia Clarke because he came to the final callbacks from that. As I said, we rehearsed the whole movie. The amount of discussions about the color of his suit, you can't even believe. So he was a full partner in crime in that. But the movie you see is ultimately the only movie we shot. There isn't like, on the DVD, there's not going to be a deleted scene, although I think I might have those two girls playing ping pong just go endlessly. There was one girl actually just playing with herself, and she could just literally just do this for like an hour and a half, which might make more money than this movie, so I should think about that.
Question over here.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for this wonderful movie. Testosterone, pumped up. In the scene at the graveyard, at the close-up shot, this is a very technical question. When Jude Law's character is crying and shaking, the camera is shaking as well. How comes?
Well, that's a good question. 99% of this movie was handheld. And that was a scene on a dolly, but the dolly started up here on the lions and then came down. And so literally the DP by the end of it was in some sort of, the camera operator was sort of standing like in a very uncomfortable position. And since we didn't really rehearse it very much on the day, Jude was doing what he wanted to do. And I think he got all the way on the ground and then camera operator was trying to hold it. So it's a little shaky, but that's literally, it wasn't an aesthetic choice as much as I think he was in enormous back pain. But you know, that was a situation, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. That was 3 takes, you know, an hour and a half. That's like all Jude Law just being extraordinarily great.
Hi. The Hunting Party is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I just had to say that to you, first of all.
Thank you.
And one thing that I really love about all your movies is that you have great actors being the best they've ever been in your movies, whether it's, you know, Jude Law in this movie or Richard Gere in The Hunting Party. And I was wondering if you ever write with those actors in mind, or is it you just write first and think about that after the fact?
Well, I very much appreciate that. You know, I've been very lucky to be able to work with really great actors, and I love what actors do since I can't do it. I am the world's worst, like literally comically bad actor. But I appreciate what they do, and I try to give them an environment to do their work in the best way. And I think as a director, part of your job is to make sure that the sets are exactly what they should be, that the monkey should be on the wall, that Richard Grant's glasses need to be those glasses, that the other actors are exactly cast. And if you can set this scene where they are feeling like, oh man, this is actually what I imagined, only better, then you're 90% of the way there. And I also feel like I make independent films that are not trying to appeal to every human being in the world. They don't have to. And it gives the actor some license to sort of be a little more daring than they normally would, where, you know, if you're making a $150 million movie, you have to make $450 million at the box office to make a profit. And so the decisions you're making are going to be the safest decisions. And if you're making a tiny movie that you're shooting in 30 days, then you have a freedom that is very intoxicating if in the right environment. So I appreciate that very much, and I'm very proud of all the actors in my movie.
Would you please take me through your thought process in developing the idea of miscegenation in the film? Because it also, besides having an interracial aspect, it also has the Muslim component. I'd like to hear what your thinking was in getting all of that in.
Well, all I know is that Dom's daughter is living her own life, and she has her life, and he is, again, a dinosaur with these views that are not quite what we should be thinking right now. And yet he's open to everything. That little boy provides the most unsoiled love this man has ever had in his life. And it doesn't matter what color he is, and none of that really matters. So ultimately, like, it wasn't much of an issue. I was just trying to represent what the world is, and what London certainly is at that time.
One more question here.
I love the movie. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
When will this be released for public consumption? I want to contribute to your $480 million.
I want you to get on Twitter right now. Start tweeting about it. It's opening here in 2 weeks. April 18th at the Arkins Camel View. And let me just tell you, I can't thank you enough for coming tonight and sitting here for this Q&A. Thank you.
There we go. I have one quick question for you.
One more question.
One more question. So, you know, inevitably there's going to be a sequel, right? Well, Dom,
starring you.
Dom, yeah, right. Well, I have an opening monologue that will kill. Where does Dom go? I mean, you know, where do you see him like 5 years from now?
Well, I think the question in the movie is, where do you see him 3 days from now? Because he's supposed to meet his grandkid and take him to school. And he's got this diamond ring, which was a real diamond ring, in his hand. What's he going to do? Is he going to mech up again? Is he going to take 2 steps backwards?
I don't know. Is he, Richard?
I don't know. But Dom was the type of character, literally, like I could write him going to the store and buying some bread, and that would make a very entertaining 90 minutes. I mean, I might be writing it only for myself, but Dom can get into enormous trouble, and he's fun for me.
Well, you brought us an unforgettable character. I think everyone is going to remember Dom Hemingway after this. Tweeting, Facebook, and thank you again.
Thank you guys
for
very
coming
much.
out.
Thank you.
We've got the award ceremony.